Hi, welcome to Studio Viv. I'm Viv, and today I decided to do something a little different. So there are so many different types of photography. I mean, I can think of at least 5 off the top of my head. There's wildlife, architecture, landscapes, portraits, food, there's toy photography. I mean, there's a lot. And all of them require different settings and different compositions and different mindsets. So today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite photos that I've taken, how I shot them, what specific settings I used, what gear I used, and what you can learn from them. I'm also going to be telling you all the stories behind each of these photos because that's really what they are. Photos are meant to tell a story. Also, if you have any of your own stories, I highly encourage you to put them in the comments because I absolutely love reading other people's stories, and they could be their own video sometime in the future. And if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I also put all of the equipment I used to take these photos in the description if you're interested. Anyways, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Oh, okay. So here's one of my favorite shots I did for a local restaurant, which you actually might have seen if you follow me on Instagram. At Viviana Schluter, feel free to follow me. Anyways, the restaurant wanted me to advertise their aguas frescas, which is a traditional Mexican drink, and this one in particular is mango flavored, and it's probably one of the most heavenly drinks I've ever had in my entire life, and I wanted to find a way to make it creative and convey how much I loved it. So when you have a subject, 90% of people are going to shoot it in a very similar way, which isn't bad, but when you're a photographer, when you're hired by someone, your job is to be in that 10% that's going to shoot it just a little bit differently. And I didn't want to just shoot the glass with a drink because I know it's good, but the person looking at it doesn't know it's good unless they know how to taste through the picture, which most people can't do. So I hopped on the internet for some inspiration. Remember, the internet is your friend. So nothing's really standing out to me, and I'm about to close the computer, and then I found it. 2 beautiful words on the screen. Splash photography. It was perfect. So I slam the laptop shut gently, I grab the drink, and I start setting up. So first I cut some mangoes and placed them along with the drink on a Lazy Susan to convey the flavor of the drink because how's the viewer supposed to know it's mango? It could be peaches for all they know. And I put some flowers in the background for some added color. And I was ready to start shooting. So splash photography requires an incredible amount of stability, that of which my hands don't have. So I put it on a tripod, and here's a tip for when you need that much stability. I recommend you use an external shutter button. This way your hands aren't touching the camera and there's no unnecessary shaking. I also used the SONY a7R III along with the SONY E35mm 1.8 aperture lens. This focal length allows me to stay close to the subject while still getting the whole thing in the frame. Next, there's the settings. The biggest factor in splash photography, or any photography with stuff moving fast, is shutter speed. For stuff like this, it's a good rule of thumb not to go below 1/1000 so that it doesn't capture any motion blur. And a shutter speed that fast lowers the exposure quite a bit. So I needed to bring up the ISO all the way up to 1600, which I don't usually do, and it kind of hurt to bring it that high, but in post I was able to remove most of the noise, so it ended up working out. And for the aperture, I kept it at f2 so that most of the upfront parts of the photo are in focus and the background stays blurry. Then finally, the splash. So for the splash, I used some ice and I dropped it in because it's not too light and it's not too heavy and won't affect the final flavor of the drink too much. Or at least what's left of it by the end. So I dropped the ice and there it is, there's the final product. I was super happy with how it came out. The restaurant was super happy with it. I think it's safe to say this is probably one of my favorite food photos I've ever taken and one of the funnest food shoots I've ever done. Then, right after I was done shooting, I went to go grab something off a table and I knocked the whole drink onto the floor, but at least I got the shot. So here's another one that you might have seen on my Instagram. This is Shanu, the red panda, and she resides in the Asian Highlands area of the Henry Dorley Zoo. And this is probably the only good picture I have of her because 90% of the time she's up in her tree taking a nap, and it makes it absolutely impossible to get any sort of good shot. So I'm at the zoo with my mom and my sister, and it's pretty much like any other zoo visit. We don't exactly plan where we go, we kind of just walk around, and if something looks cool, we check it out. So just before I took this shot, we were just about making the decision to make our way back to the entrance, which is quite a walk because the Henry Dorley Zoo is massive. So you pass by quite a few animals on the way out. Anyways, we are slowly making our way back because we're so tired from walking all day, and we're coming up on the Asian highlands, and we almost don't even think about it because she's always sleeping, so what's the point? But we had to go check just in case. So we're standing there, we're waiting, we're tired, and we're literally about to turn around and go the other way, and then we see her.
Yeah. Where?
We all see her coming out of her little area, waddling along, and we all start freaking out. I didn't even have time to switch my lens because when your shot is about to be in a tree in the next 10 seconds, you don't have time to switch your lens. We all yelled, "Look, she's here!" like a bunch of maniacs, and probably got interesting looks from some of the people walking by. Besides any strange looks, I waited for the perfect moment of her walking up her little branch, and by the time I looked up from the camera, she was gone. Then I looked back down at my camera, and the shot actually ended up way better than I hoped it would. For the shot, I again used the SONY a7R3, which, as you can tell, I use for most of my shooting, and a 55 to 200 millimeter lens with a variable aperture of 4.5 to 6.3. And I used a shutter speed of 1/400, which was probably higher than I needed it to be, but this was just to be sure the whole red panda would be sharp and in focus. I also used a low ISO of 160 because it was a bright and sunny day, and one thing I would have done a little differently now is I would have used a lower aperture. In this shot, I used an aperture of f5.6, and this made the background probably more in focus than I would have wanted it. Now I probably would have used an aperture of f2 or f4. I probably could not have asked for a better shot of that red panda. Her fur was so rich and so red, and I think red pandas are probably one of the cutest animals ever. I also probably wasn't gonna get another shot of that anytime soon. So, moral of the story, don't give up, and good things come to those who wait. Oh, what's this? Something that isn't a food or plant or an animal? Yes, it is. So if you know me, you know I don't usually take pictures of cars. I usually stick to stuff like animals and vegetation, as my dad likes to say, but this was a very special opportunity. So my mom is a hairstylist, and one of her clients was very kindly giving away tickets to a car show. You can see where this is going, and let me tell you, this was not going to be just any car show. This was going to have vintage, collectible cars, signed collectible guitars from bands like the Rolling Stones and Queen, and it was going to have pinball, and on top of that, all of the money it made from tickets was going to a local music school, so kids from the school were going to be performing there. So it was kind of a big deal. The tickets were originally supposed to be for my mom and my dad, but my dad had prior arrangements with a football game that day, so my mom asked the client if I could bring my camera and get some shots, and he said yes, and so my mom called me, and she was like, "Hey Viv, there's this car show we just got tickets to. Would you like to go?" And I was like, "Yes, I would like to go." So in preparation, I did all of the possible research on car photography I could have before the day of the show, and actually one thing that's super cool that I learned is when you're taking pictures of cars, the longer the focal length you use, the better, like 90 millimeters plus, because the compression of the lens makes the cars look their absolute best. Like, I saw some examples on a video I watched, and these cars, they look like they're supposed to be on a poster. They were really beautiful. So then we were off. I walked in, and I immediately wanted to take pictures of everything. And I mean, I had never seen so many cool looking cars in one place. Also, the music students were so incredibly skilled and talented. I didn't know if I should listen to the music or look at all the cars and guitars. Anyways, I took a ton of photos at that car show, but this is probably one of my favorite out of all of them. So this is a 1968 Dodge Charger, and to me, this car is total eye candy. The color is beautiful, and I am a total sucker for old cars. For this shot, I used, again, the SONY a7R3 and the SONY FE 50mm 1.4 aperture lens. And for the settings, I used an aperture of 1.4 and an ISO of 2500. So, there's a couple things that I would have done a little differently here. The composition is good, and I really like the angle, but I would have lowered the shutter speed to raise the overall exposure of the photo, and then lowered the ISO to get rid of any extra grain. So, out of all the cars I shot, if there's one I could pick for myself, it would probably be this one. This was also a really great learning experience for me because this was my first car show, and I feel like I will be even more confident in my shooting the next time I go to a car show. I also learned, don't be afraid of shooting new things. So what if you've never shot it before? It's an opportunity to try something new and expand your portfolio. It was such a fun experience, and I'm incredibly grateful to have gone. And Richard, if you're watching this, thank you so much for the tickets. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed listening to my photography stories as much as I enjoyed telling them, and I hope you learned something along the way. And if you have any of your own stories, I would absolutely love to hear about them. Who knows, again, they might be in their own video. Also, again, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more photo and video content, and here's another video you might enjoy. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and go make some awesome content.